And on Funky Fridays with YAYA today, we have Jafunk. Welcome to the show, Jafunk. I'm very excited to have you on the show. Incredibly excited to have you on the show, actually. You are definitely a master at disco funk. And I'm really, really excited for you to tell us all about what you've been up to, what your plans are for the future, and and such like. I know you've got a new single coming out today called Weekend Love, and I know it's just going to be a funky track because you are the master of disco funk. So do you want to tell me a little bit about how you got started, and because some of the listeners won't know you, but you are a music producer and DJ from Australia, but you're now based in Berlin. You're actually from Perth, Australia, which is not where I come from. I come from Melbourne, but a fellow Aussie. So nice to talk to a fellow Aussie. So you had a sort of great year in 2019 with some shows in UK, Germany, France, Japan, and also Australia. So you're on a great trajectory, really, to doing a lot. And then suddenly COVID hit, didn't it? So exactly. So things have been a little bit different. But you've been apparently learning some new skills. You're on the keys, but also you've been learning the guitar for the last year. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. No, thanks very much, first of all, for having me on the show. Really appreciate giving me the opportunity to tell the people a little bit about myself. And so, I do come from Perth, Australia, and I'm living in Berlin now. And I've been producing music for about 10 years now. And under Jafunk, which is my current project, I've been working on that for about 6 years. And as you mentioned, I got a single coming out today, which is called Weekend Love. Very excited about that one because that's really the first one this year, and also the first one in this kind of little bit different direction from the stuff I've done in the past. Very excited about that one. So I will say I don't know if I can call myself a master of disco funk yet, as you mentioned, but I'm getting better.
You up there. Picking you up there, but you had amazing kind of a number of streams really in the last few years, haven't you? With Ecstasy, which is a collaboration, isn't it? With sort of the Biche and Fat and Bambi, isn't it? And you've also had some amazing sort of other kind of streams with The Baddest, about 1.2 million. So you're doing incredibly well in terms of the streams. I've also noticed that on Splice you had like over 600,000, it's probably more than that now, sort of downloads of your funk packs, isn't it? I mean, you say you've only been in the industry for about 6 years under Jafunk, or 10, but your music is doing very well, isn't it? And I'm loving it. I absolutely love it. It's right up my street.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's starting to get better, slowly but surely. Like every year the numbers and the streams are starting to climb, which is a good sign, I guess, that the project's growing. And a lot of the stuff I've done over the last couple of years was with my friend Fabish, who is actually just over there in the other room right now.
Not in his dressing gown.
Not in his dressing gown, no. No, but so we've had some good success with our music. And then, the Splice stuff has also been going really well. Like you said, it's probably, I think now it's on about 700,000 downloads overall. And it's really amazing actually the opportunities that have come from that Splice pack. Like I've recently just about 3 months ago linked up with Mark Knight from Toolroom Records, and he'd used a bunch of my samples in a couple of remixes that he'd done recently. And then he reached out to me on Instagram and he said he was writing a new album for this summer. And we started collaborating on some music. So there's going to be a couple of tracks with me and Mark Knight on his album coming up in a few months. Exciting. Yeah. Because a lot of your work, you are collaborating with a lot of people actually. Is your latest single, is that just by you, or is that a collaboration as well? Or No, that's a collaboration, yeah. So it's me, I'm doing the production. And there's two featured artists. One is Dana Williams, who's actually the daughter of Michael Jackson's guitarist David Williams.
Really?
Which is quite cool, yeah. And then there's another guy from Berlin, Mike Nasser, who's an awesome rapper from, I think he's originally from California, and he lives in Berlin now. So we linked up, and yeah, it's an exciting track, and it was actually, you mentioned in the introduction that I'd been picking up a few new skills during the quarantine period, and so I picked up guitar a year ago, and that's been starting to make a feature in the music, and also the bass 6 months ago. So this track, Weekend Love, is actually the first one which I've played both the guitar and the bass on. So wow. I'm quite excited about that.
Plus the keys, I imagine, as well.
Plus the keys, yes.
Yeah, and I love your videos. Do you produce those yourself, or the ones you put on Instagram? They're just so cool, aren't they? I just love them. Or or do you have someone who does that for you?
No, I also do those as well. Yeah, so I normally just set up my I record them all on my iPhone.
Yeah.
Just in my room in Berlin, and then I do all the video editing myself too. So yeah. It's a bit of a I like the one with your friend, yeah, in his dressing gown, Fifish. He's like, that's so super cool. I love it. Oh yeah, that was actually my friend Pastel.
Oh, that's Pastel. Yeah, sorry, that is. Yeah, sorry. Yes, it is. Yeah. That's right.
He's also another great producer. A French guy. He's living in London.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much the only way to meet up at the moment is in the virtual world.
Yeah, in your dressing gowns as well, because that's what we all live in at the moment, isn't it? It's like the rest of my wardrobe has become completely defunct at the moment. It's like literally, so apart from, I get a few free t-shirts. This is my free t-shirt. I've got to mention this one because this is from my friend Jason Reagan, and he does like Cosmic Jive and a few other kind of radio shows, and he does Lost in Disco.
Lovely. I might have to get one of those.
Yeah, ask him. He might send you one. Follow him.
All right, I will.
No, actually, I have to say it's not a free gift. It's actually a friend for a present. That's what he's told me. A present for a friend. Present for a friend. We don't want to sort of think that I'm getting kind of freebies or anything. So I want to talk a little bit about how these sort of music tastemakers that you are on YouTube and SoundCloud and such like. And can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because some people don't really know. It's changing the digital landscape really of music, isn't it? These days. I mean, obviously you have sort of Spotify and the paid for kind of sort of platforms, but these are sort of free platforms, aren't they, where you can sort of get your music sort of heard to a large audience. And I think, as you said, Majestic has over sort of or near 3 million subscribers, doesn't it? So it's an incredible platform to sort of try and get your music onto, isn't it? So, and you're on there.
Yeah.
And many other kind of platforms as well, aren't you? So
exactly. Yeah. No. So exactly as you said, they're basically channels. They have YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, everything. But they're kind of just like a brand that puts up videos of a particular style of song. So, for example, Majestic, I guess they had their peak around 5 years ago, and they had this sort of like a cross between what we call blog house music now, which was kind of like the underground, really melodic, somewhat soulful and jazzy music as well. But they had this particular vibe, and so all of the stuff they put up on their channel has that that same sort of soulful, fun dance vibe. And they amass quite a following, and if you're lucky enough, they basically just find you, and if they like your songs, they'll upload it to their YouTube channel, and it can give artists like me who are still kind of in the starting out process, a little bit more exposure than you could get normally through your own means.
Yeah, so like the old A&R art, isn't it?
Yeah,
essentially, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. But now it's actually mostly about the Spotify playlist, like the tastemaker channels. I guess they don't hold as much weight as they did 5 years ago. So now, like the main thing is trying to get into these Spotify playlists, and that's really where
getting onto those, I've noticed that actually, a lot of artists talk about, independent artists talk about getting onto those lists, how important it is. It's really, really important, isn't it? But and you've got your own sort of Colorize, isn't it? That's your own kind of playlist where you've got like Tom Misch, and I haven't actually had a listen to that. I must go and have a listen, because I went to see Tom Misch live and I love him. I absolutely love him. I think it's fantastic. And you've got Tuxedo, and do you know when I went to go see him, a lot of my friends actually had no idea who he was. It was many years ago. I said, he's actually headlining at Somerset House. How can you not know who this person is? But there you go. I think they listened to Capital. That's probably why.
That's their problem.
Yeah, absolutely. They should listen to Funky Fridays with YAYA, and then obviously, that has some good taste.
Exactly.
But so you're also, I'm going to talk a little bit about this because on here, I don't know if they can see it, it says IO Music Academy. You also do some courses for people. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was something I started up. I did my first course with them a couple of months ago. And like teaching has always been a part of my life, I guess, because before I started doing music, I was actually a tennis coach.
Oh, and that was get to that. I'm going to get to that because I saw that.
Okay. Yeah, so I do like to teach and to give back and, share the knowledge that I, have accumulated over the years in music production, and particularly in this style of music, like the more funky, disco, dancey stuff. There's not a whole lot of information out there on the internet about this. It's quite a niche style in some sense, so there aren't a lot of tutorials on how to do it. And I also wanted to do something with my my fans and followers on Instagram to have a bit of interaction with them, and I think there's a lot of like my Instagram following in particular is 85% male, so I think it's mostly music producers and people who are trying to make music themselves. So yeah, I linked up with IO Music, and we ran like a 5-day course, and it went really well. I think people got a lot out of it, and I was really happy with it. So I'm hoping to do more of that kind of thing.
And they're not too expensive, are they? I think they're around about £50 to around about 70. Is that right? How much are people paying for a 5-day course? Online. Is it around about that price?
Yeah, I think it kind of depends on how big you are as an artist. But my one, I think back when I did it was about $50 US, maybe even less. Could have been like $40 US. But I think it's still available online for anyone that wants to watch it back. So I'll give myself a bit of self-promo. Value, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's incredible value. And I think, these days, there are people who sort of put up free stuff, don't they? Like I was looking at Rob Harris, who puts some stuff up on YouTube and things like that.
Yeah. I watch him, actually.
Do you? Yeah. Well, he's a really good friend of my friend, actually. So maybe I'll have him on next, actually. Yeah, Tony. So they actually sort of played guitar together and they play in very sort of similar style. Tony Ginger. You should follow him on Twitter. He follows me.
Okay.
We're friends. Lovely. And he's so very good friends with him. But I was going to go on to talking about you being a tennis coach. I noticed on Instagram you have a new sport apparently. Is it called paddle? Paddle,
yeah, exactly.
Paddle tennis. Yeah. How did you get into that? I noticed you were standing with your paddles. It's like, obviously if you've been a tennis coach, it just kind of makes sense you'd probably go into that. But tell me a little bit about paddle. I didn't know anything about paddle, but
yeah, it's kind of like a cross between tennis and squash, I guess. Like it's on a smaller court. I think it's about half the size of a full-size tennis court. And yeah, you have to hit the ball over a net like you do in tennis and into the court, but then it can also bounce off the walls. There's like a big cage that surrounds it.
Oh, right.
So yeah, the ball can bounce off the walls, kind of like in squash. And it was really fun. It was the first time I've played it, actually, and I really enjoyed it. It was.
And how many play it? Is it like 2 or is it 4? How many? There was a group of you. So do you play in teams or how does that work?
Yeah, I think normally it's a doubles type of situation, so 2 against 2. Yeah. Good
fitness, I suppose, isn't it? Because squash is very sort of tiring, isn't it? I like a bit of tennis. Although I do get a bit bored with tennis. I know you're a tennis coach, but the only reason I learned tennis. The only reason I learned tennis was to get out of running when I was at sort of a college, and then actually now I really like to run, which is bizarre. But I decided to have tennis lessons, so I didn't have to do the running around the field or something. Anyway, getting on to sort of other
very
things.
Passionate about the sport.
You are. Oh, you are. You'll have to give me some tennis lessons. Actually, I'm okay at tennis, but I find I need to probably play with someone who's the same kind of level of skill.
Yeah,
it makes sense, doesn't it? Makes sense. So I'm going to talk about like what you've got coming up next, and obviously we've got COVID at the moment, but in terms of parties or events and that kind of stuff. Have you got anything planned for the future, or it's a bit hard really at the moment. You're in Europe at the moment, so it's a bit difficult. But have you got anything planned in the UK or anything coming up?
Yeah, at the moment, there's not a whole lot going on. I mean, there's a few things kind of on hold until we get more information about what opens up in Berlin. Like, I've got some friends there. We want to throw some parties in Berlin. And I'm also, fingers crossed, going to be going back to Australia at the end of the year to catch up with people. So I'm going to also try to organise a few shows there. And, well, I suppose Australia is probably the only place in the world right now where shows are actually happening.
True, yeah.
You know, proper shows.
If we're allowed to travel there, though, Jafunk, if we're allowed to travel there, because my family are all in Australia, and I'm so desperate to go back, and but I have to quarantine for 2 weeks, which kind of makes it a bit difficult, doesn't it? You know, sitting in a hotel room on your own for 2 weeks. So, yeah, I'm with you on that one. I'm desperate to go back and see family and friends and such like. So I'm just wondering, would you ever consider? You know, I love the Brand New Heavies. Well, most people know I love the Brand New Heavies. Would you ever consider remixing any of their tracks?
The Brand New Heavies. I don't actually know them, to be honest. I'll have to check them out.
So I'm going to tell Simon that. So you don't know who the Brand New Heavies are?
No, I've not heard that name before. I'm sorry, Simon.
Yeah, you've got. This is going to go on to the live. The Brand New Heavies have been around for about 34 years. You heard Midnight at the Oasis? Maybe.
I know that name, but I'm not sure if I know the music.
You're going to have to look them up. Going to have to look them up now. And I should have worn my Brand New Heavies t-shirts, and then you would have sort of probably maybe had an idea. They have the elephant on the front. Anyway, and listen to a bit of their music. So maybe when you listen to it, you might think, yeah, I'd quite like to remix something of that. So yeah, and I'm also going to talk about how did Michael Jackson get blocked on Instagram when you share that?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's just impossible.
What is it with these social media platforms?
I know. I mean, I've put up about 20 videos with no copyright infringement so far, so I guess I was on a pretty good run. But Michael Jackson, they seem to there's always issues with that. Like, I guess his copyright team is very onto it. So
it's a copyright. It's not necessarily the lyrics or anything. It's just a little bit about sort of Yeah,
I think it was just because the audio from because I guess for those who don't know what I do on Instagram, I do basically these covers of the old disco and funk stuff, where I play most of the time the synth bass over the top of the track, and I guess I just picked up the audio from the original track and banned me. Didn't they?
Bandu, naughty boy. I was going to talk about like some of your influences, because you know who's if you were to put a playlist together, I mean, obviously you've got a playlist together, but if you were to sort of say to us today, you know, who really influenced you and got you into funk and funk disco, who would that be? Would you say?
At the moment, I'm listening to a lot of like the late 70s and 80s stuff. So people like Kool and the Gang, obviously Chic, Nile Rodgers, Jamiroquai as well was always a huge influence for me growing up. Also, I guess in terms of the more modern people, like Anderson .Paak has this definite funk and soul influence in his music. So he's one of the guys that I sort of look to now. But a lot of the 70s and 80s disco is the kind of stuff that I kind of base my music around now, and then try to flip it in a bit of a modern way.
Because disco is really huge in Europe at the moment, isn't it? It's really having this resurgence, hasn't it? You know, particularly in Europe, with this, it's that kind of new disco, isn't it? And a lot of the remixes and the people remixing Sister Sledge and all that kind of stuff. It's just, I just love it, because it just brings all that sort of music back, into today's musical taste. I mean, it's always there, but it just kind of makes it a little bit more modern, and I love it. Do you want to talk a little bit about Japanese disco? Because the Japanese are so much into funk, aren't they? They are, aren't they?
Absolutely. They had a big, I guess in the same sort of era, like the late 70s and 80s, where, there was a huge amount of, Japanese disco out there, and it was obviously huge in Japan. And it's something I've more got into in the last couple of years, actually. Like I always knew about the American disco and funk from the 70s and 80s. But last couple of years I've sort of discovered more, and it's a completely different rabbit hole to go down. Like you think you know a lot about disco and funk, and then you find the Japanese world, and I'm like, oh wow, there's so much out there, and it's just great music. That's I wanted to make a comment on what you were saying before about how disco is kind of making a resurgence, and I think just the fact that the music is so good, whether or it might sound a little bit old school and maybe a little bit dated sometimes, but the music itself is just brilliant, and I think it's always going to come back in some way, whether it be something sampled, or there was disco house and head candy in the 2000s, so I think it'll always be around.
Yeah, and as you said, you like music like me, and I always talk about this, and even Harvey Style was talking about this. We were sort of saying, music that makes you feel good. That I always like music that makes me want to get up and dance, because in fact, I don't really like music that I don't really want to sit there and just watch maybe Oasis or something like that. I just, because nothing of Oasis you can dance to, can you? It's just that. It's true, isn't it? It's true. Name one song you can dance to by Oasis. None.
Probably just offended quite a lot of people in the UK who love Oasis, but no, I definitely agree.
I do like Oasis, yeah, but I can't dance to them, so.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you. Like, I like to listen to stuff that gets me up and going, and that makes me feel good, like you said. And disco and funk is just the epitome of that, I guess.
Yeah, you had your live on the other day, and it's just, you've got it on, and I just can't help myself. I'm just like dancing away, and I find myself, it just makes me feel, fantastic. And I think that's what music should do for me personally. It should always make me feel like, I want to kind of get up and dance and just kind of lift my spirits, really, because let's be honest, at this point in time, and this point in our lives, there's music is what we really all need, don't we? Because there's all the news is so depressing, isn't it? So
yeah.
I don't watch the news. I try not to look at too much on Twitter, because it's just depressing. I'd just rather put on some music, put my headphones on, and pretend that it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist.
That's right. No, I definitely have to agree with you there too. Like, well, that's my whole thing. That's kind of why I started my Jafunk project, was because, I wanted to put out this good energy into the world, and times are tough, as you said, but no point crying about it and sitting in the dumps. Like, let's put some fun music on and try to make the most of it,
Absolutely. Well, we're going to put on your track today, and we're going to put on Weekend Love, because we like a bit of weekend love. Amazing. Don't we? We like any kind of love.
Absolutely.
Really. Any time of the day, any time of the year, we like a bit of loving. And so we're going to put that on today, and we're going to play some of your other sort of tunes as well. We'll probably put a bit of Ecstasy on. We're probably going to put a bit of Daft Punk on. Actually, I'm going to go through all the things that you like. I'm going to put on everything that you like, because it's going to be a Jafunk day, you see. So how does that sound?
That sounds amazing.
And if everyone thinks the playlist is rubbish, I can blame you. No.
Send me a message if you hate it, listeners out there.
Yeah,
you can blame it all on me.
Absolutely. No, I don't think there'll be everyone loves Daft Punk, everyone loves Michael Jackson, everyone loves all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, we'll put a few of those tracks on, and and definitely a few of yours as well. So thank you so much for joining us today, Jafunk. I'm really, really excited to see what you've got coming in the future. All the stuff that you've been doing sort of recently is absolutely fantastic. It's definitely my kind of music, and and I can still call you the master of disco funk, Gotta live up to that name anyway. So thank you very much, and take care.
No, thank you very much for having me. Take care as well.
Yeah. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.